It's kind of a special stream we have going on right now. We're going to be talking about some Final Fantasy VII. Specifically, Final Fantasy VII Remake. We got a couple people. Adea is already shouting them out. Creed Plays Games. You got through your playthrough, what, last week?
Yeah, last week on Friday?
On Friday?
No.
What's it, Thursday?
Thursday, I think.
And you just started up hard mode?
Yeah,
Today?
I'm in chapter 5. No. I started up over the weekend, and then I played a little bit last night and this afternoon.
Nice.
So I'm at chapter 5, leading up to the second bombing mission.
Nice. And then we got SolaceAndDread. You beat it last week as well.
I did, man. And I keep telling myself I'm going to play hard mode, and I haven't brought myself to do it yet. So
I've heard.
We'll peer pressure you into it eventually.
I've heard things.
I don't know if I want to complete everything on normal mode first and then go into hard mode, or if I should just go straight into hard mode.
I think to prevent you going insane, if you're going for achievements, like the trophies, maybe do all that on normal and then play it on hard mode.
There's a few achievements that I'm not doing this on hard.
I'm struggling, and I know that I'm garbage at games to begin with, but I'm struggling on just getting a kiss from Jessie. I can't do it.
You gotta get your girl crush on.
Yeah.
She's too thirsty anyway, bro.
But listen, I'm okay with that. I don't
It's
have
an
an issue.
Here, man. It's a game.
Roche destroys me every time. That whole bike scene. I'm just bad at being on a bike. I don't know, dude. I don't know. But yeah, so we're gonna be talking about a bunch of different stuff in Final Fantasy VII Remake. Chat, we do see you. For the most part, we'll pick messages. Like if we see you guys raise an interesting point or anything, we will call it out. We'll address it. But for the most part, you're probably just gonna be listening and watching three nerds discuss some Final Fantasy stuff. But yeah, I'm very excited. I've been holding back talking about stuff.
Sit back, grab a drink, enjoy us.
Yeah, so cheers to everybody. Hopefully everybody's having a great start to your week. Happy Monday. As happy as it can be.
Did you not drink after you cheersed?
I did just now.
I did.
Okay.
Oh, him.
I always just assume that I'm the one that's doing something wrong.
I don't know.
But yeah.
Yeah, anything.
What's up, Obi? Thank you so much for that, host, man. So yeah, the first thing, which is crazy, thinking about the scale of it, 3.5 million in sales.
The first 3 days.
In the first 3 days. I loved Spider-Man. Played that game nonstop. But the fact that this game was able to beat that out is crazy to me, and I think it shows the anticipation and the scale that people were wanting this, right?
I will be a little contrarian here in saying that it's not, only because Final Fantasy VII is one of those staple games that it kind of encompasses all of the JRPG atmosphere, right? So this, it's not a surprise to me that this had such staggering numbers, because it was all anybody talked about for a long time.
This is you're pretty much saying this is up there with if Half-Life 3 got released tomorrow.
Exactly. it's literally up there with Half-Life 3, and I don't even know. I don't even know what else to compare it to.
Right. There's a couple staples that the gaming world is waiting for, and I think Half-Life 3 is probably the last one, and then Final Fantasy 7 is the next one. Yeah.
It's like finding a unicorn.
Yeah,
you could not like RPGs or JRPGs at all, and you've heard of Final Fantasy VII. You've seen Cloud Strife.
Yeah,
I wasn't even playing Smash 4. I wasn't playing Smash at all, and I heard when Cloud got added to Final Fantasy or to the Smash roster, and I'm like, what?
Yeah,
that's something that clicked. I wasn't even in the gaming world at all, and I still picked up on that. So
I forget who it was, but somebody kind of. They defined Sephiroth as almost like the Darth Vader of gaming, right? You don't need to know Star Wars, but you know who Darth Vader is. Everybody knows Sephiroth, right? I kind of get that comparison.
Have you ever seen that meme? Every Final Fantasy is just Star Wars, but.
Yeah, I mean,
and then it just finishes with the sentence.
yeah. But I do think like starting things off with that. Obviously, the game is huge. It's sold well.
Yeah, and to put that into a little bit more perspective, because first 3 days everyone hears like initial sales. First off, that wasn't just physical copies. That was physical plus digital.
Yeah.
Second off, this game isn't going to be PS4 exclusive for all eternity.
Right.
They're going to have a PC release.
That's right.
We don't know if they're going to go anywhere beyond that. We're assuming at least just PC. And so we're going to see probably another... Yeah, oh god. No way. It won't handle that. You know that.
I mean, they would melt.
Who knows?
Mommy. But so to put that into more perspective, I did a little bit more digging into Google Trends because nerding out, why not?
Sure.
And the only game in recent history, from what I found, to do better in Google Trends than Final Fantasy VII Remake is Animal Crossing. So
really,
Solace, you got it. Congratulations.
Listen, that game it's unbelievable. I'm not even gonna talk about that. I can't. The amount of hours.
No. Animal Crossing blows it out of the water, and that's mainly due to the fact that it's garnered a metric ton of new people coming into that game. So
yeah, no, for sure.
Not entirely surprising, but at the same time, very interesting.
Very interesting. No, most definitely. But yeah, overall, you do raise a really good point. If it's just for PS4, then we've already had 3.5 million, and that was just in the 3 days. I'm sure that we've sold more.
Probably, yeah.
Once it comes out on PC, I know you're going to see a huge spike yet again because there's a lot of people who
guaranteed.
don't have consoles. So it's I
wouldn't be
Square's
surprised.
bank.
I wouldn't be surprised if people who bought it on PS4 are also going to buy it on PC just to see their favorite character in ultra high def 4K.
Look, I'm already hoping that I can nab this for PC, and I want to see if those textures get any better.
Man. You know what's going to be super interesting though? The PC mods, right? We're going to get like
yes, yeah.
Tell me about this. I already
mods.
Know. After Dissidia got released on PC, I didn't need half of what came out of the Dissidia modding community.
Sure,
I didn't need it. I didn't need it.
The best part of some of these games coming out on PC is the month or two after when all of the great mods have come out.
Oh my god!
Seeing them on Twitter. So.
You know, somebody's gonna like mod in Sora, Goofy, and Donald, and it's just
god!
Can't wait 100%. To play. Can't wait to play that remake.
Yep.
Oh man!
But yeah. So obviously huge. It's the numbers I assume are only going to increase as time goes on. But let's like that's great. Let's get more into the meat of the game and like share our thoughts on leading up to that chapter 18. You know, because like I don't know if you guys want me to go first, but
go for it.
Okay. I think for me, and I assume that some of you guys had this same sort of experience as you were playing through the game. It happened at least a dozen times where I'm playing the game and it like, I guarantee you if you go back and you watch my VODs on stream, I end up just like, I stop playing the game and I look around. Because you just have this weird moment of like, holy shit, we're actually playing Final Fantasy VII in this high def. You can look around. Midgar's alive. You get like NPCs are talking about coming home from their day job and like hating like what they had to do, and it was just this wave of this doesn't feel real almost like this is
the
just
surrealism.
Yeah, it was, and just like the level that. And I get it. I know people are gonna like in chat are gonna say fanboy. That's fine. But that's the sort of stuff that I think Square nails in their games. I loved it in Final Fantasy 15. Just the side banter as you're walking around. And I feel like they did such a better job in this remake than they did with 15. Like 15, if you kind of like run forward a little bit too much, they'll kind of stumble over the dialogue or it'll get cut off or anything. All of this, it felt like, I don't know how to explain it. I just felt like I was sucked into the world so much more than any game I have played so far.
Yeah, I think with that dialogue bit that you were talking about, I think I only had 2 interactions throughout the entire game where someone was talking and then it got cut off because I went too fast to get to a cutscene.
Sure.
The main one being like Aerith is protecting Marlene, and they're walking to the door, and Marlene's talking about the flower, and like halfway through Marlene talking, I reach the door and Sung comes in, and I'm like, oh well, all right, I guess I'll have to stop and listen to that one.
Yeah.
Well, for me, what I was like thinking about going into, and I was just vocal about it before the game even came out. I was saying to myself, like, these guys are eco-terrorists, you know, like that. We've had that conversation. How many times have I said, like, well, I'm attacking you guys on Twitter or wherever, and I'm saying they're eco-terrorists, and I don't care what their ideals were.
We aren't the good guys.
The people around them are gonna be pissed the hell off.
Yeah.
Because of the actions of these guys. And I'm like, and that's never talked about. And it's all they did in this game. And I'm like, all right, I have nothing. I have nothing
no
to
complaints.
say. Yeah. They did it. They did, like, they considered everything. So those dialogue bits when I'm walking around, and like what you were saying, where the people are upset about their day or they're complaining about the actions of Avalanche, like, it really did build the world. Like,
oh yeah,
they really did that.
You felt like Midgar, and that was like one of the things. Like when the plate falls, I feel like there's so much more weight to it because you have
Barrett's,
all of that.
Barrett's scene.
Barrett's like, oh my god.
Oh wow.
So that
Barrett
scene
was the main character of this. I don't care.
Barrett,
he was the main character.
Dude, Barrett was so damn perfect in this. All the characters were, but Barrett's, like, the voice actor for Barrett, he brought it home, man. And it's not like just to sort of gush on Barrett alone, because we could have this whole fucking podcast could just be about Barrett. All right,
Soren over here gushing about Barrett because, you know, that's Barrett Wallace's favorite Twitch streamer, guys. It's just a little secret.
Hey,
get out of here, Soren.
listen. But all that aside, all right. That the dude was able to, like, encapsulate. He was able to portray Barrett so much how I wanted Barrett to be portrayed. Like, when you play the original game, Barrett is kind of portrayed more as just a little bit hot-headed. Like, he has an emotional side and, like, he has some shit, right?
He's the hot-headed character that is comedy relief early on.
Exactly. But in this one, they did such an amazing job of him, like, they showed his character, and I think this could be said for any character, but Barrett is just such an easy highlight of, like, they nailed it. Whenever he's with the crew, when he's with Avalanche, he's trying to be the tank, right? He's trying to be the leader. He's trying to, like, when they're stressed out about the bombing and how it went wrong, his whole attitude, his whole approach was, put that weight on me. Like, I'm gonna let me take that burden for you. Let's move on. He had that leader role. Then he's like a completely different person when he works with Marlene. When he's talking with Marlene, he's this caring father. And then when the plate falls, you see he's this emotional mess of, like, he can't handle that loss. That range and just the amount that they were able to, like, bring to that character, they were not able to do in the original.
That particular scene is really what sold me on Barrett's character. I actually said leading up to the scene, how he handles this will determine how much I love Barrett's character, and nailed it out of the park, like you said. Yeah. And this actually kind of goes into something I did want to talk about, because we all had a few what's the phrase I want to use? We were apprehensive when we first learned about all the characters having new voice actors.
Right.
I know especially a lot of people really were very uneasy about Sephiroth and Clouds in particular. And I was curious, what did you guys think after going through this experience? Did they grow on you?
I'll start.
We're
Go for it, yeah.
So I was not sold on, well, specifically Cloud and Sephiroth, and I think part of that is we've seen so many iterations of this game after, like, you know, all these new installments, whether it was Advent Children, Kingdom Hearts, where they were using the same voice actors for every single person, so, or for every single character. So to have that changed after being with these characters for so many years in the remake, it felt, honestly, it was kind of a slight. Cloud was my biggest, like, absolutely not, no way, I do not agree with this new voice actor. I even follow his original voice actor on Twitter, but over the course of the game, he felt right. He felt younger. He felt kind of the appropriate age and maturity level for, you know, a cocky hothead like Cloud, you know. And Sephiroth, however, even by the end, I'm like, you know, hit or miss. Like Sephiroth's, it's, I don't know, but everyone else, I for the most part, I have to say I love the new voice actor. So I'm personally partial to Mina Suvari, but
and that makes sense a lot for Cloud, because thinking about Cloud's character in general, after 7, it's a year period before Advent Children, and then another year before Dirge of Cerberus. So he's already gone through a lot of growth throughout the game, and then even further beyond that, like his character, his voice could have changed. We could say a bunch of different things, make him sound older, more mature. That makes sense. But I am kind of with you on the Sephiroth one. I'm not quite there yet. It's the only voice I'm not sold yet. I need something. I need something a little bit more.
Clouds grew on me. And I think Solace nails every point, especially because coming from games like World of Final Fantasy, Dissidia, they kept all of those voice actors, right? They've been pretty good at that. And for whatever reason, they decided to change things up, whether it's to make them sound younger or, as Solace says, money, probably cheaper. You know, I don't know. I honestly do not know. But Sephiroth is probably the biggest struggle for me, because I don't like, he almost sounds, I can't pinpoint it, but he almost sounds like not deep enough in his voice. You kind of know what I mean? Like, I want him to sound a little bit Sephiroth. I want him to sound a little bit more menacing.
A little more menacing.
Yeah. And I didn't necessarily get that. I felt it more in the end, which might be a reason, but we'll talk about that in a little bit.
I think the imagery added to that, though. Like, if you were to, I think if you were to listen to those lines with your eyes closed and not necessarily see it, it might not necessarily hold that gravitas, you know. So
I mean, we are at that point, and we'll get to that. We are basically on runner's high. We've already done so much to get to there, and everything is just firing off. We probably, like, it's easy to see that particular scene in rose-tinted glasses. So maybe when I get through there on hard mode, I'll listen to it again, maybe feel a little different.
Jams brought up a good point, and he said that he doesn't think that it's Cloud is bad, and it's more his dialogue. And I kind of maybe agree with that, especially some of the, like, one-liners in the beginning of the game with Cloud. Like, it was like some of them, like, I don't know if it was bad direction or what, just some of it just didn't land. So I think
part of that is Cloud is kind of an asshole initially, right? And so, like, his dialogue does kind of go flat. And, like, I remember when I was playing through it, there's a part that I like hated Cloud, and I understood what he was doing, but I also hated his approach. There's a side quest where you help an old man in the graveyard, like, you help go to the graveyard and all that, and the guy comes back, and, like, you turn in your quest, and you're talking to the guy, and he wants something from you, and Cloud just goes like, all right, for like 2,000 gil or nothing. And, like, it's just a very hard, like, cold, There's no humanity.
No
but like,
emotion.
yeah, but that's kind of Cloud, and you're not like he's supposed to grow over time.
Those make sense to me because that's his job. That's how he makes money. So
Sure.
I don't know if it was like that, but it's kind of like some of the like more iconic lines when he's supposed to be like, I think it was Wedge in the very beginning in the bombing run. And he's talking to him about like everything that Avalanche does and stands for and what's going on, and he's like not interested. And it's like, it was too. I don't know. There's just something about it where it was like it was too much. He was trying to deliver the line instead of being in the moment.
The one-liner I did that did get me at the beginning was he's responding to Barrett talking about his beliefs in the planet and all that, and Cloud responds, "Do you really believe that?"
Right.
Get help.
Of course, and then get help. And
it's exactly like that. Where
I laughed at that part, but at the
Right.
same time, I like thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't like Cloud at this point.
No, he's a total asshole to people.
Yeah.
But that's Cloud.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think that like what's funny is there's a group of fans that feel he developed a soft side a little bit too quick in this game, which I think is funny. But we're gonna see more and more of that over. I like your reaction to that.
There's actually a few theories on to that particular aspect about Cloud.
Yeah.
So.
Are you kidding me? Like too fast in this
Too
game?
fast?
Or you think the original game it was way faster? Oh my god, I'm not gonna.
Well,
Those
keep
purists,
in mind,
man, they
keep in
get
mind
you,
the
dude.
original game was this area that we've explored was only 4 to 7 hours.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. So like by hour 3, you're dancing in a dress. You know, you're cross-dressing as Cloud, trying to help your friend.
Yep.
You know, like get out of here. Don't talk to me about him.
So
Oh my God.
before we like move on into the meaty stuff in like chapter 18, what for me? All right, how do I phrase this? I want to put it this way: there were so many parts in this game that I was not convinced Square would be able to pull off, like the cross-dressing stuff, and they blew that
sent
out
it
of
a
the
mile
water.
ahead.
It was insane. I was laughing and enjoying like all the little side things that they put in there. Like if you go talk to Chadley after it's, and just the dialogue between like
Fucking Chad.
yeah, the dialogue between you and Tifa. It's just huge hats off to the localization team on like figuring out how to make all that work and like have it flow. So there's so many aspects to this game that like there are just moments that I will not forget and that will highlight, and that was one of them was Wall Market. And like I don't know if you guys had a specific part in your playthrough leading up to 18 that stuck with you that you were just surprised.
I think
and blown away by?
Honeybee stuck with a lot of people. I
think
think.
so.
Definitely did. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think all of Wall Market in general, the fact that they went, not only did they go into the backstory of all these other areas, that as you go through the place, there's a lot of like banter between NPCs, but specifically Wall Market. In the original, it almost feels like a carnival you're going through.
Sure.
And you realize, even as a kid, that this is more of an adult thing, kind of. But it's still like, you still feel like you're going through a carnival. And then in this, you have so many dark things. If you go through the back alleys while exploring the area, just looking for loot, because that's what I do, you hear all these like really freaking dark and depressing things. Like the main streets are all bright. Get into the alley and you can feel the seediness of the town in general.
That was actually really good. That's a really good point.
Like the one line that stuck out to me was an NPC, and this actually leads into something into the story. This one NPC is talking about auditioning to become the Don's wife. Right. And like she's talking about, we'll be set for money for life and all these things. Like it's gonna be a good thing. Trying to convince her significant other to let her do this.
Yeah. Which in then retrospect, then you have like Leslie's story,
and then you go into Leslie's story, and you see exactly how that happens, how that works out.
Yeah, there's just so many of those. Like I think I like how you described it as when you play through it as a kid, it kind of feels like it's a carnival. It's like a fun place. You get that it's an adult themed sort of thing. But now when I was going into it, I couldn't help but be like, this is Las Vegas. Like even when it goes to the daytime, if you've ever been to Vegas at night and at the daytime, it is drastically different. And they kind of nailed that atmosphere in Wall Market, and just like that attention to detail. They've spent so much time and effort and money on like really trying to drive that home. It's so cool seeing. Like I can't.
Yeah, because you look at Walmart. That's the thing. I walked into Walmart and I remember it just being one of the few times, but it's like brighter. In the original FF7, it was brighter, and there's the grunge is real.
Yeah,
you know, you're remembering that you're still in the slums. You're just in the part that, you know, they celebrate being degens. That's it. So
there's no like glam. It's all like everything is shut down. Like there's a bunch of stores that are just closed in the daytime. Like it feels like it's a night place.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right. So overall impressions, just leading up to chapter 18, how were we all feeling? Like they were nailing it. They missed a couple marks. What?
I can answer that. For me, they went above and beyond. I know I said this on stream, and I think you kind of agreed with me, Creed, one time. I've been waiting for an RPG to balance action, like kind of hack and slash action with an RPG ATB sort of system, really solid. 13 attempted it, didn't land. 15 for a lot of people felt too hack and slash, not enough like strategic, and I can get that if you go into that way. They nailed it with this, where especially when you set up the shortcuts and you learn each character's kind of thing, and even after beating the game, there are people who can tell me in chat that like you don't know how to play Tifa. They're probably still right. I don't know how to play Tifa.
One confession. Was it Hype Viking? Because he has real strong opinions about Tifa and how to play her and how to use her.
No, it was Chames, but people will tell me how bad I am.
Oh no, I my chat was telling me how bad I was too. But I have one confession. And you all can feel like I'm a terrible person for not doing this. I didn't bother with shortcuts until chapter 16.
I didn't use them once. Didn't use them even at the very end. I was always in my menu.
You were always in slow-mo.
Every single time.
You gotta set up your shortcuts.
I
refuse.
I've done it. Going through, all right. So I will say, going through hard mode, it's made me realize how good it is to have that just quick button, and you're not losing any time.
Yes.
So it helps in hard mode.
Absolutely.
And I'm forcing myself to get into it. But
dude, the shortcuts are great. But like that's I cannot praise the combat system enough. So like before like earlier on today, I was watching a bunch of the old trailers and everything for FF7Remake. When they originally were working on this game, they did not think about the ATB system being this way. And I was looking, it looked very Kingdom Hearts-ish, where you had attack, you had magic, like you had the options in the corner. I'm so glad they decided to revamp how they did these systems, because how it is now is perfect. And
there's a few things they can improve on it.
Sure. I think that they can.
Very minute things. I'd have to be very nitpicky to go at it.
Sure. I think like the camera locking thing, that was a trade-off. Yeah, 15 had problems where you had full control of the camera, but then sometimes you would end up in a tree and not be able to see what the hell you were doing, right? And like then you're just frustrated. Yeah, and then you're just frustrated because you're just like, I'm getting my ass handed to me. That's frustrating. So then they tried to, take control of the camera a little bit more, which then has frustrated people because it's... So there's obviously areas that they still are trying to flesh out, but...
My nitpicks were actually much smaller too. Like mine were the textures, which everybody attacked them for.
So go ahead.
Go ahead.
Finish your thought there, and then I'll add my thought.
All right. And the other thing that really got me, and I had to let it go because every time it bothered me, I went back to the original game, but it was just how linear it was.
Right.
And I hadn't thought about it until Dread had pointed it out, but it was like just how everything was basically on a path, But I'm like, every time I would say that, I'm like, well, you weren't literally in the open world in FF7 until, the end of this game.
Yep.
So, like, it was really hard to nitpick. Like, I had to start picking apart tiny little things. I'm like, I can't really detract this from the game. It's not fair.
Yeah.
So
it's not necessarily a bad thing as long as it's told in a good way. I mean, you were allowed given open field and stuff about that. And then going back to the graphics. So there's two things I want to point out for that. The first one was like nearby objects. Some of them were pretty like low res. I think someone in chat pointed it out earlier. It's a limitation on PS4 technology. Can't. Oh well. But the one thing that someone pointed out to me during one of my streams was how they didn't like the skybox.
Sure.
And actually, the skybox is a stylistic choice. If you look at the skybox, it's a lot lower resolution than what you would expect from a game in this quality. And you'll notice it's very grainy. It looks like a JPEG file.
Yeah.
That's a stylistic choice for players who played the original, because everything in the skybox in the original was very, very grainy. It's very similar.
I think you're giving a free pass. I think that
You think it's a free
was
pass?
resource management. That
You
was
think it's
resource management, and that was to make sure the gameplay was smooth. Stop it! Stop right now.
I am.
That's me being too. That's me giving him. Too
Yeah,
much.
your fanboy was showing right there. I can't.
I think a little bit. I'm gonna side with Solace on this. They probably could have swapped out like maybe a JPEG for a high quality PNG. Maybe. Who knows?
I don't know. I felt like it was a nice callback to going through all the story and seeing all those backgrounds that you were.
You're right. It was, and that it
2.5D
definitely
game.
helped it. Like it helped it, but I don't think it was stylistic.
I will
You think it-
I will circle back to that point though, because I do think that the point you're raising holds some value in another way, Creed. We'll get to that. But yeah, I think the only other thing, Death by Button Mash did point something out that did drive me crazy. The interrupts in combat were crazy. Like, you need to really be paying attention to the combat that's going on, right? Like, you can't just...
Elaborate.
So, you need to be watching the enemy. You can't just constantly be in the menus. Solace, I was in your streams. You know what I'm talking about. There was plenty of times where you'd be like, I'm going to cure. And then in the middle of you casting that cure, the enemy just rams you, and you're like, great, that 8 MP, gone. That ATB bar, gone.
Yeah,
Nothing feels good about that. And like,
I'm frustrated just thinking about it, dude.
I think that's
why you use shortcuts. Shut up, Phoenix.
It doesn't even matter about the
No,
shortcuts.
shortcuts doesn't help you on that one.
No.
That's you have to understand. That's you having to learn and understand every single enemy you run into.
Yeah,
That's something that even the assess can't help you with.
Exactly. It is very much like, I think, but it's almost like, as much as I hated it, it's almost kind of a testament to the greatness that they've got with this combat system, because you can't just rush in and spam. No, you do need to be paying attention. And there was plenty of times later on in the gameplay where I would go to heal and then I'd stop and look and see, okay, actually the enemy in slow motion is about to just ruin my day. So I'm going to actually stop, let the enemy wreck my face, and then hopefully I'll be able to cast after that.
Gotta hold back.
It got to a point where I was tricking the AI, where I would switch to a faraway target just to draw them off, and then have like somebody who was standing right in front of the AI, like cast heal. Like I would switch to Barrett, and then have Cloud, who's literally two feet away, cast Kiraga. I'm like, oh well, I'm Barrett right now. You're not going to attack Cloud. You're looking at me across the field.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
There's two things that you can do to fix that. One was the provoke materia, which requires a materia slot, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I mean, it does help, and it only works if the character is an AI at the time.
Right.
The other thing is kind of what you were leading to, Solace, or what you were talking about, Solace, where you issue commands to the characters you need to when they're not being focused. So I found myself a lot of times just going back to Barret and kind of like tanking it while everyone else is doing their thing. Even in hard mode, I'm doing that kind of. But in hard mode, I have, and this is mostly just from the fact that I'm not very far into hard mode. It feels like they've eased up on that a little bit, because in hard mode, the enemies can just kill anyone they feel like, as long as they put enough pressure.
Yeah.
So I feel like they eased up on that a little bit, and I think part of that was to make normal mode feel a little bit more challenging. So I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that. I don't, like I said, like you guys have all and everyone else has pointed out. I don't like the fact that main character has provoke all time. But at the same time, there are ways to manipulate it a little bit, and there are ways, especially when you get into hard mode, that it doesn't necessarily really matter, because you already have to know what you're doing at that point.
I do think, as much as I hated that as well, because I tended to like just play as Cloud, or James just played as Tifa, or Solace maybe just played as Barret. I think they might have done that on purpose to get people to switch characters. I do feel like they are sort of using this first chapter, this part 1, which
to teach.
We'll discuss about that a little bit. But this part 1, exactly, to teach and be like, listen, this is not Final Fantasy 15. This is not 13. You're not controlling one person. You do need to switch around. You need to think about each one. You need to have your shortcuts. Yes. And so I do think that was their method of like, we will punish you if you do not play the game how we want you to.
It's that's one of the best parts about this game, straight up. What we're talking about the combat is the fact that I'm playing a Final Fantasy and I don't remember how many times I died, but I can literally count them in the OG. It's like I died twice, but this one, I don't know, 10,
right.
Like easy 10.
Just on normal mode.
Yeah.
just normal,
I've beaten that in the first 4 chapters.
I will destroy a boss, and then I'll walk into a room full of Sahagins, and they're like, "Oh, you don't have any fire material?" Well, yeah. You're done. Yeah.
Or Tonberry will just end your life in one hit.
Oh god.
I did not lose to Tonberry. I camped him so good.
Nice, dude. No, this guy crushed me, man.
Yeah. Don't kill me,
dude. But all right, I think if that said, unless you guys want to talk anything else about like impressions and reactions to the game, we can move on to the Meteor thing that is going to be a little bit more back and forth. I know people are going to have opinions. You guys want to move on to that, or
we can move on to that. I want to kind of lead off with something real quick.
Okay, go for it.
So something I said during one of my streams was Final Fantasy VII wasn't one of my favorite Final Fantasies. The original. And a lot of people actually misinterpreted that because of how hype I was for it. They're like, "Oh, you weren't ready, or you weren't excited for this at all then." And no. Let me get this correct. Final Fantasy VII, the original game, wasn't my favorite Final Fantasy. It wasn't even in my top 5.
Sure.
However, the entire story that was told in the Final Fantasy universe is by far one of my favorite Final Fantasy stories. And that is easily up there. Now,
that's fair.
This is where we're kind of getting into Chapter 18, and things get kind of thrown off the rails a little bit.
Yeah. Wait, are we going right into Chapter 18 right now?
There's a lot. Oh, yeah.
First impressions, reactions to Chapter 18. So, we're all... Chat us, we're all standing at that.
I didn't even get to ask you guys beforehand what your favorite part of the entire game was.
Oh,
like which fight?
Part of the entire game. Which fight?
Yeah, which fight?
That's really tough. I can tell you.
I'm gonna tell you mine.
Go for it.
It was Reno and Rude on top of at the midpoint of the pillar. That part in particular. Yeah.
I like how, and not just because you said it and now it's like playing through my head's just playing through the entire fight right now. I like the fact that not only did that fight take elements from the first time you fought them, but threw it together in a unique combination of attacks. And then not only that, they added a few new elements when you were going through it.
Yeah,
I think
because that was actually one of my original game overs in the first one. Is I didn't attack the
game
pyramid.
over. Yep.
I remember, like, this is only my I think it was my third Final Fantasy, but I remember seeing the pyramids, and I'm like, I should probably hit those, and I didn't.
Real quick, for the person in chat who said Hell House. I wish I could pixelate something.
I was gonna say, Death. I've agreed with a lot of what you said, but Hell House, like, I cannot pick a favorite fight. I think that's really, really tough. I can tell you what fight I absolutely despised, and that was Hell House. Hell House can just go away.
Hell House was definitely one of the worst.
I'll have to see how it is in hard mode, because I'm not.
Oh, you don't even know what you're going into, dude.
I don't
Hell
know.
House.
I know they changed stuff. That's all.
Oh yeah, no, they did.
So it's gonna be fun.
So, like, a bit of a spoiler for people who have not played hard mode, like Solace. They don't just, but I want to highlight this because I think that Square needs a little bit of attention in this regard. Hard mode is not just the enemies hit you harder. It is not that they do more damage, that they have more health, that a lot of, like,
that exists.
That's the, like, Kingdom Hearts approach to making things harder, in my opinion, or at least the older Kingdom Hearts. I don't know about 3 now, since I haven't played the latest. But, like, this, they add mechanics. They change certain things in these fights. So it is not, oh, we just made it so you have to fight it longer. You have to relearn shit.
Oh yeah, not only
that I feel like needs to be applauded.
Going into my favorite fight, I actually do have a favorite. I can pick it out. It's actually the last set of fights. All of the fights in Chapter 18, I could put them into one pile, and I can say that is my favorite sequence of fights in the game.
Those last fights were super fun.
Ignoring story things and stuff like that. Yeah. It was a challenging. It felt like a challenging fight at the time because it didn't click all right away. There were something, like, the game wasn't going to give you anything with the SS. Like, the SS was like, good luck. Yeah. That's it. That's all it said.
You wasted a slot of materia. Have fun. Yep. So great.
You wasted. You needed to assess anyway so that they end up in the log, but you didn't learn anything from it. You had to learn.
I'm still salty about that last motorcycle fight, man. The wound is too fresh.
Really?
I struggle on the motorcycle shit. I don't know why.
Well, the first
I
one
think I was worse than you, actually.
I didn't understand all the mechanics because I didn't look at the top left and go, oh, hey, it's all right there. So I was struggling in the first one. I didn't actually game over in any of those fights, though.
I hate you.
Shut up.
I love you.
Get out.
Solace and I are mad at you. I think we're going to go ahead and kick you from this call. Thank you for participating, Creed.
I pissed both you off with the motorcycle fights, and then I pissed Solace off more with getting darts again. All right.
Oh my god. I can't with you, dude.
But I do think that is like because it's so difficult to pinpoint like a single fight that is the best, I think shows the range that this game brought to the table.
You can't pick a favorite?
I honestly can't. Like, it's so I love each fight for its own kind of thing. I loved the Rufus fight. I know that you probably did not, Solace. I loved the Rufus fight because it felt more like it was a classical fight of, like, figure it out. Like,
I watched you
a little bit.
I watched you do it, and it was right after I had just gone through it, right? Yeah. And after watching, like, you actually figured out the move. I just camped him and cast fire the entire time. No, it was Infinity's End.
Are you
kidding? The move. Yeah. First of all, it takes two ATB here to start. So
see, but like, and I know like that's been a criticism. People have criticized that, like, the game is a little bit punishing when it comes to materia. Like, you go into a fight, you don't have the right materia, you're effed, right? But I kind of forgive the game for that because I'm like, that's how old school JRPGs were. You died. Yep. You had your ass handed to you. Went into a fight. There's been plenty. Like, I played Final Fantasy VI like 8 months ago. I went into a fight in Kefka Tower, had nothing equipped for it. I melted.
First of all, Martine, I did exactly what you just said.
Counterstance. Counterstance is OP. Remove it from the game, dude.
I can slow mo counter any melee attack.
Yeah.
No, give me it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'm
like
using that too much right now.
but that's like why it's so difficult for me to pinpoint a single fight that I loved the most, because the game direction and how they thought about it, each fight is unique in its own sort of way. Reno, you fight a specific way. Rude, you fight a specific way. Hell House, you just die a lot. Every other,
I will say,
fight a
Soren,
specific way.
if you weren't as distraught as I was, because it's the only reason it's not my favorite, because I can't remember it. But the only, like, I will say, I bet you, if you play through it again, Dreamweaver Genova will be your favorite fight. You just don't remember it because you were thinking about your homeboy.
Oh,
but
hell yeah, dude! That entire I need to just highlight that section of my stream because I was a mess mentally. I could not. Yeah, it was, but that's Jeez, that was so
because
good.
it was right after that craziness that you're thrown into that crazy fight.
Yes,
and you're running around hitting targets over and over again, and that was the only fight that I can think of that was really like that, where you have to take out ads like as quickly as possible.
Right.
So
before you get like overpowered by those tentacles and everything. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't think of another, but I'm pretty sure it's not the only one.
Yeah.
Well, that said, let's get in. I've been wanting to have this discussion for a long time because I know like we all have our own opinion. I know there's going to be people in chat who have their opinion. So
it's where everything goes off the rails.
Just a prefix before we get into this, the three of us are friends, at least until this discussion ends. Right?
Once this come up.
Right? Everybody in chat, you're allowed to have different opinions. Just respect each other. Don't be assholes. I know the Final Fantasy community can be very passionate, but let's just remember that we're all friends here, okay? That said,
I'm sorry, your opinion's wrong. Feel bad.
Okay, yeah. So here, I kind of want to start off, and it's almost like I'm going to pass it off to Solace a little bit. I absolutely loved every second of watching you play, you moving into Chapter 18, Solace, because everything, your facial expressions, your confusion, you reading the assess things, I was like, that was me. That was exactly the same. I was like, I read timeline, and I went, no. Is Nomura no? What is happening? And I saw you piecing it together at the same time. I want to say that my initial impressions was not great.
You were skeptical at best.
I have my reasons. I don't know if you guys want me to like get into. I don't want to start off doing my rant, but I can't.
You don't want to start off on a negative tone. Well, I think you should go. Let's just go. All right. I want to hear it.
So here's the thing, okay? And I was immediately, and I know a lot of people are very, very excited about the approach that they're taking and everything. When I assessed, and I don't know, Creed, you were not in my stream, but I know that there were people there. Yeah, people saw me.
You were finishing it right before I got even. You finished the game right before I started Chapter 18.
That's right. I think people could tell I was immediately like, don't know how I feel about this. Now I'm going to explain why. I like the idea. I like where this could go. I'm just sort of burnt out on the idea of alternate timelines and like time travel, if that's how this goes.
And that's also, because there's like 12 different theories going out right now.
Yeah, so we don't know. But also, it's hard to pinpoint and explain this entirely, but there's a side of me that loves where this could go. Then there's a side of me that I've talked with a lot of people, and they said like, this is, I've never played 7, I don't want to play the original, I can't get a PlayStation 1, so this is going to be like my way of experiencing the game. Sorry, you're not going to be able to now. This game, as much as I think that they tried to make it so new people for 7 could enjoy it, it's not. This game is very much for OG players of 7. So I can't Like to call somebody out in the community, don't judge me, is like he's playing through the game for the first time. He's never played 7. He knows a little bit about it, but he's not going to be able to experience the 7 that I experienced. So
not in the same way.
Not in the same way, but also like the story is not going to be the same. The ending is very much addressing, remember that? We're not doing that entirely. Kind of, maybe, you don't know.
Possibly.
Unknown story continues. But also, it's almost like it's really hard to pinpoint. But I also kind of have an issue, and it's ingenious at the same time that they called it remake. In a time where Resident Evil has their remakes and it's essentially the same game remade, and people are experiencing a game from their childhood in like modern day graphics and all of that. That's what I think a lot of people were expecting. But instead, Square was like, no, remake. We're remaking.
Yes.
Oh.
What if you take that game and you chop it off right after that motorcycle fight, right?
Yeah.
Everything about that game still screams remake in the traditional, well, now
100%.
Traditional sense.
Yeah.
Mostly, yeah. It's like
Mostly, yeah.
90-ish%.
It's not until you reach that ending point where you say, well, hold on, remake is the wrong word, even though it's not.
No,
it is
not.
a remake. It's more than a remake. It's more than the standard remake. It's a remake and a reimagining. So
I think it's not just that, but I think we're so accustomed to the traditional sense of the word remake for video games.
Exactly.
But if you look at that word for other works in
movies,
the world, movies, etc.
Yep.
It's not the way that we perceive it.
Yeah.
In video game, it's how they did it in 7 Remake. It changes elements. The phrase I've been using a lot lately is canonicity can still exist, but continuity can be thrown whichever way they feel like it.
Yeah.
It's a lot more than just throwing a nice polish onto the old game and just selling it back out for $60 because why not?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I will applaud them for that 100%.
Yeah.
And then there's the maybe we're getting Nomura'd, and
I think so.
We'll get to that in a second.
We'll get to that. I agree with you. I don't want to feel what I felt at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3.
Exactly. And I think that's the big thing for me is like, I loved Kingdom Hearts, but I went on that roller coaster of like 10, 15 plus years of just, do you really know where you're taking this story? Have you answered all of these things? Or are you taking 7 and complicating it and not going to deliver on a lot of things? That's my big fear. And like Fearman pointed out, you can play the original 7 anywhere, but if we're realistic, a lot of people are not going to want to go download the version on the Switch and play through it, because for the most part, a lot of modern day gamers just don't have the attention span for JRPGs these days.
Not sure of that.
Yeah,
no.
and I was kind of excited for.
They could, if they really want to experience the story,
sure,
they can do the Switch, and this also is on the Steam version, and just turn on the cheats and just go through the story.
Yeah,
it's
no,
the same
for sure.
story.
I think
if you turn on
for a selfish,
it's not the same experience.
There is a selfish side for me where like when you start up 15, when you start Final Fantasy 15, you see the message, a Final Fantasy for fans and newcomers. I kind of wanted that message to be the 7 remake. I felt like 7 has so much weight underneath it, so much clout, that anybody who has never even played the game knows it, and you're now drawing people in, and you might deter some people because at the end, when they reach this point, they're kind of like, I needed to play the original to sort of kind of wrap my head around, like, why are we fighting Destiny? I don't know. Why are these whispers so freaking annoying? Like those pieces I feel are missed from somebody who's going through a playthrough blind. But that was my initial impression going into it. I'll let you guys.
But I feel like they really kind of, at the end, they did explain it, you know? I feel like...
do you think so for somebody who's never played the original?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's hard for me to answer that.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, but
I would
think
need
that
to,
Yeah.
but they
they did. They literally explained it verbatim. Like they're, protecting a timeline, but maybe not. Maybe if I didn't know that this is a remake, maybe it wouldn't have been explained, or maybe if I didn't know the context on what they changed, this wouldn't have made sense.
Eclipse in chat said his wife was lost when they were playing through it, and I feel like
Really?
that's a little bit of my fear, because and they probably could have told the storytelling a little bit better, but it essentially was, this is Final Fantasy VII OG remade. It's great. It's great. It's great. Chapter 18, and now you're like, here's all of this.
Yeah.
Here you go. Figure this out. It's actually not remake.
but
But it is a remake. It is a remake. They're remaking it.
Totally. And like
They're completely remaking it.
I can't argue that. And there is a part of me that is excited about that. But I can understand the frustration for some people who were sold a remake and got a sequel, if that makes sense.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
That's fair.
I think there are some people.
This game is a new entry. This is
100%.
Final Fantasy VII 5.
This is number 5 in the franchise.
This is
7.
They turned it in the interview with him in the Ultimatum, and also hopping back to the remake thing. Gus and I were talking about it. Yeah, it's not a remake in the traditional sense that video games are used to. We're not used to this.
I think the fact that it's a sequel of sorts, or a new entry in the series, really is where it miffs people. Where it's like, well, it's not a remake because it's aware of its previous history. So it's in that sense, it's not. But to me, that kind of makes it even cooler. It's like, who cares? Like, don't get hung up on the technicalities. If you just remove that word, then you wouldn't have an issue with this.
But I feel like if they remove remake from the title, people would be more mad. I honestly think it would be worse if they didn't have a subtitle remake. Like, imagine being all right. Imagine being like the Resident Evil 3 community, where they got Resident Evil 3. That was all it was said. Nothing else was added or changed to that title, and they got less than what they were expecting out of their normal experience of Resident Evil 3. They actually removed stuff from that.
Yeah,
right.
Now, that extreme of how the fan base reacted and put it into Final Fantasy VII. If they didn't tell us from the beginning that they were changing stuff, that this was a remake, that in more than just the traditional sense for video games, it was a remake, think of how insanely upset the fan base would. It
would be a firestorm. Oh my god!
Plane tickets, or trying to find a way to get plane tickets amid this whole entire scenario right now going on, just to fly over to Japan and try to burn down Square Enix.
I think when it comes to Chapter 18 and the direction that they're going, I think that it's important to keep an open mind. I think I went into it, I was very excited with what I saw. I was glad that I'm not being force-fed the same story. I like that they're taking risks. My only reservation is knowing the history of one of the writers / directors.
Yeah.
And I'm just, like I said it during my stream, and I'm gonna say it now, I hope that the other two are able to put a leash on Nomura, because I'm scared that they're gonna Nomura this. I'm scared that we're gonna get a mess, and then by the third one, we have no idea what we're dealing with, because FF7 is, when it comes to Square Enix, like it's fair to say that is their most prized IP, right? Yes. There's nothing above it when it comes to that company. 100%. So like, they can't let that man grab it and run away and do the Nomura thing and jump off a cliff. They can't. So, by the end of this new installment of games, we're gonna have 7 pieces of dog shit.
Yeah,
I can't.
Yeah,
Star Wars.
Well,
and how insanely divided the fan base is on that.
Yeah,
Nomura is really fucking good at starting a story. He is really fucking good at that.
He's amazing at that.
and where he goes at the end, I don't know. So
it sounds like we're kind of getting into like the theory side of it. Do you guys want to like move into talking about?
I wanted to feel a little bit on chapter 18 itself.
Okay.
One more thing I just wanted to add here was, yes, when we're fighting the three whispers connected to the big entity, we kind of figured out that was the three Sephiroth clones from Advent Children. That was a callback.
After some struggle to figure it out after the first bit.
Right. However, go ahead.
I just wanted to cut you off for a quick second. I absolutely loved. If anybody in chat is not like following Sols, please do so. I loved the second you went through that portal. You were like, "Holy shit, this is Advent Children." I think that was intentional. I think as you put it, Nomura knows how to start a story. I think everything that we've got in this game, they did very, very smart and on purpose. You don't have any of those Advent Children moments until you pass through that portal. And then all of a sudden, it's Advent Children, and then you find out you're fighting the three kids from Advent Children. Like, I thought that was genius, but continue. Sorry.
It made so much sense in my brain before figuring that out.
Yeah.
That was your old selves fighting the fate that you were originally supposed to have. Like you're them fighting you, trying to change their fate. It made sense. And then to think about it being the Sephiroth kids, it's like, I don't know where that goes. I don't know how to make that make sense. Even though it was clearly them, I can't deny it. You know, Velvet Nightmare alone, I can't deny it.
Well, this is where all the crazy theory shit comes into play, right? Because even people raise the point, how did like Cloud go from his original Final Fantasy OG kind of combat, kind of clunky, a little bit slow, a little bit heavy, to now he's like freaking cutting buildings in half and he's doing his Advent Children shit. Like, how is he pulling this up? Well, some people claim that once we went into there, you know, time is no longer in play. Essentially, when you went into that spot, all of the experience that Cloud had in Advent Children and all that, it's now in the present. That's why he's able to do all this stuff. But
I think when it comes to Clouds and
yeah,
like we shouldn't have had that part where we lose our support at the end. No, I'll throw that right now.
I think when it comes to that stuff, the way I always picture it is like you summon the strength when you need it.
Sure,
you know?
I like that. I think that's a better grounded approach.
Right. They even called to that in Advent Children because, you know, I've seen that movie a countless amount of times. Tifa straight up says it. Like, think of the strength we all had back then. Like, you called that up when you needed it, you know? And it was, you know, that's kind of what that moment was. That's what a limit break is, right? So,
I mean, that's also what is explained on how Cloud is able to do some of the things he's able to do, even when he's a soldier. Like, he does things that soldiers normally can't do.
Right.
Soldier. I mean, he goes through the same process. Go through Crisis Core. He is basically just sat in a bath for 4 years of Mako.
Yeah.
And that's effectively the same thing they do for some of their soldiers.
Yeah.
So, like, he is, in all senses, other than having gone through orientation and all that, a soldier.
Yeah, I mean, but he wasn't though. So
right. Excellent.
Don't give him the clout he deserved.
Is there?
He is very much infused with Zach's memories, but we got that already.
Is there a like? I know the theory that I tend to be leaning on, and it's so Kingdom Hearts, but like, is there a theory like?
Are you seriously on the time theory or time travel theory?
Yes.
Please tell me you're not.
Dude, so listen. Okay, so I'll do my like, everybody put on your like thinking caps. Right, if everybody wants to join the cult of Soren, let's do this right now. Okay, play through the game again. Play through the game again, even on normal, and just pay attention to the dialogue. The dialogue that Aerith drops, you play through it and you're like, she knows. She is aware of everything, and that's what makes me think that like there's. It's either time travel or some live stream shit, but regardless, even if it's just live stream stuff, right? Like, let's say it's Advent Children Sephiroth. He figures out You know, there's people have talked about the novels, the black life stream materia storyline or whatever, where Sephiroth figures out how he can live forever is to constantly haunt Cloud, right? He could do this thing where he figures out how to go back into the past, and the whole point of the Whispers is to try to keep things on track, right? Sephiroth pulls you down an alley, tries to prevent you from seeing Aerith. Aerith is locked in place because the Whispers all around her. But even just like, it's so evident to me playing through the game a second time that Aerith she knows everything that's going on. She gives you a flower and she says, when lovers reunite, they give these flowers to each other. She never said that in the original.
This is just me, but I always figured to the longest degree that Aerith, that she was always kind of aware of everything that's going to happen, but she once she entered that live stream, she was all powerful anyway. In my brain, she's the one that stopped. She's the one there deflecting meteors and shit. Yeah. So,
but she's almost like in the game. It's almost like she's actively trying to get you to change how things.
Yeah, her and Sephiroth, they're puppeteers, and that's my opinion here. Is that they're the marionette controllers there.
Aerith flat out saying like, "Don't fall in love with me if you get her cutscene."
I think they are up to it. I do not subscribe to the time travel theory. I'm, like you said, more into the omniscient live stream theory.
Okay.
Where we already know Sephiroth is in the live stream.
Yes.
Like he crystallized, he's able to access it, and that is why the Whispers are not able to affect him. That is going on that. And Aerith, being part ancient, has a direct connection with the live stream. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of in the boat that it's the live stream is able to give visions of things that should happen. How it has planned out this entire story already. How it has planned. And they are trying to both change it into their own favor. So it's kind of like the Dissidia powers, where granted they're not the creators of that world, but they're both trying to vie for power in their own regard. If you pay attention to any part of that sort.
Yeah, I could kind of see what you're getting at, to where if Aerith and Sephiroth are aware, right, they're omnipresent in this version, or however we put it like that. Right. There's been conversations about the original Final Fantasy VII, that ending is technically the bad one, right? Yeah. I know you raised that in some of your conversations, Creed, where like Katase has said all humanity dies, right?
500 years.
Yeah.
Regardless of what happens in Advent Children and Dirge of Cerberus, because everyone always goes to those saying, well, they changed the story again because clearly all humanity is alive in Advent Children and Dirge of Cerberus.
But that's only 1 or 2 years later. You know,
only 1 or 2 years later. Right. There doesn't say what happens the remaining 498 years. And
so it could be this kind of situation where maybe there's more of an emphasis on Aerith versus Sephiroth in this case, because they were always fighting in the live stream. Like, we know that much if you get into the heavy lore of 7. But maybe this is more along the lines of Aerith is trying to prevent humanity dying out, and Sephiroth is just like, nah, I want to win and be alive, kind of thing.
Right. And something that Gus and I were talking about as well is what the role of the Whispers were in this whole first part. And we kind of came to the same conclusion that most of the rest of the internet has seemed to kind of come up with, is they're the, as Barrett puts it in the end, the arbiters of fate. They are supposed to course correct whenever something happens, something changes. See this at the very first time we run into them. The very first time. Think back to chapter 2, right after the first bombing mission. We're walking through Midgar, and all of a sudden we see Sephiroth.
Yep.
That doesn't happen in the original game, obviously.
Right.
We spend probably another 10 minutes going in that direction, following Sephiroth, and going through that cutscene.
Yeah.
That's the first time we see the Whispers, because they're holding back Aerith.
See that, but you don't. That's what I find so interesting, and this is something that I actually wanted to bring up. You never see the whispers. You see Aerith responding to them, but you don't see them until she touches you.
Right. Yeah, you don't see them. You as Cloud do not see them.
Right.
You as the player
you know that
actually
they're there.
do know that they're there. And actually, they were following her since the opening of the game. That first scene when you see Aerith in the opening cutscene movie, she looks worried at something behind her and starts moving in a quick pace away from it.
Right.
She knows that she already knows what's going to happen.
I think of that point specifically as when she kind of sees what's happening, which is how I've always viewed the end of the original Final Fantasy VII, because the very last scene you see is Aerith's face pulling away from that spot, that leak in the live stream or whatever the hell she was looking at. But I always thought like Aerith knew everything. She knew how this is going to play out.
There's numerous times in the original where it's clear Aerith knows more than what she's telling the party.
Yeah,
it's
very
so
it's to me this is Sephiroth having that same advantage and them having that puppeteer. But I agree with you, Creed, that it's
some live stream bullshit.
Yeah, it's but I don't know. I
don't
this
know
is Nomura. He likes having equal, but like opposing forces standing there, and all of his characters in the middle trying to act between them. So
James does raise a good point, though. Aerith does have, either she's letting on that she's confused, or she doesn't always know everything, and she knows bits and pieces.
Right.
It could be
bits and pieces.
Right. It could be along the same lines as like Cloud is able. So the theory that people are passing around, I'm sure a lot of people have been reading all of these, but like some of the theories is the live stream, the whispers are almost kind of like the white blood cells of the planet, right? They're trying to fight back on a virus. That's kind of how it is. And they see that Cloud is directly involved in all this, so they might be helping give him visions of the future. That might be happening with Aerith as well. We don't know.
You don't see it from her perspective.
Yeah, and I think like there's a lot of details that you can debate on so many things. So like, could it be the live stream? Yes, maybe. Why I'm not totally sold on it's some omnipresent live stream thing, while I'm kind of leaning more towards alternate timelines and all of that, is there's the scene at the end where you have all the ghosts and they're all surrounded, all the whispers are surrounded around Midgar, right? And you defeat Sephiroth in that moment as Cloud, but then it cuts to Zack and they're all there. So the whispers at some level are present regardless of what time in this timeline you're at, right? They have to be. Because if you have Zack in the past, he's doing his thing. We prevented the whispers from doing what they were trying to do, right? We killed Fate. We stopped the Destiny. They vanished. They exploded. And Zack, I don't know if he saw it, but he definitely responded to it. But that was happening in the past while we were fighting in the future. So there's this weird sort of like, kind of see what I'm getting at there? Like there's definitely a bridge of some kind where time, like how do you explain that?
Where the theories that everyone's coming up with kind of diverge, and we get a bunch of different other ones. The multiverse theory is that timeline that we see with Zack doesn't actually happen in the timeline that we experience as Cloud. That we'll never see Zack being alive. And their first piece of evidence for that is that Scout. Is that the name of the dog? I'm trying to remember. I literally just did
it was a different breed.
It was a different
breed. It was a different breed, different design, everything.
Stamp.
And that's the stamp. Thank you. That's their first cue, is that it's not going to be something we encounter. The other bit is maybe it's the timeline that could be, or something. I don't know. There's a lot we don't know about that particular area, and I'm very certain they left it that way just to have fans like have something to hold on to and try to figure out what does it all mean.
Maybe, but like I think that's why I'm so drawn into one
the timeline.
Yeah, one, I know Nomura loves his timelines.
Yeah.
I know he does. So there's probably a little bit of a I'm leaning too heavily on that. I even know, like I brought this up in my Discord in a conversation. He wanted 15 to be all about timeline stuff as well.
Oh yeah.
And for the most part, Tabitha sort of backed that up. There is the theories of alternate stuff in 15, but it's not the focus of the story. When you have the whole Zack scene, you have the different stamp, you have the whispers are present both in that setting as well as your current setting when you're fighting Fate.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's some like weird timeline bridge or it's just the light. Like it's
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Regardless of what happens with Zack, it's not necessarily going to have any bearing on what's happening in our current story. Because these guys, they wanted to stop Sephiroth. They didn't. And essentially, the mission is the same. They're leaving Midgar, and they gotta find Sephiroth.
Right.
So I don't know that it's gonna be any different if Zack were to live. Also, correct me if I'm wrong here, but despite Zack killing all of those forces sent to kill him,
Mhm.
and them walking away, it was still bright outside. At night, like I don't know that he got away. Like we don't know that how much longer he lives beyond that point.
Right. We don't necessarily know how much longer he lives beyond that point. There is a point though that we've already diverged at, if we're just looking at that particular scene. If you
Because he went and got Cloud.
Well, when he went and got Cloud. But if you rewatch the original, Zack gets shot in the back.
Yeah.
From Crisis Core, falls down, and then it starts raining.
Right.
Yeah.
And then Cloud slowly starts making his way over to him.
Yeah,
and that's when the mental imparting all happens. His contact with Zack, like psychologically, he starts becoming Zack's living legacy.
Those final 3 soldiers that walk up to him and finish him off.
But that was that was before that scene where Cloud starts crawling back up to him. They're gone at that point.
When
it's
Cloud
already
made
started
it to
raining.
him, that's probably the only real divergent there. We don't necessarily know that Zack gets away from that scot-free.
Yeah,
you know,
in talking about this one, we just still don't know anything beyond what we've seen. You are correct. It's just that we've already seen the shift in the timeline because, like what I said before, the timing between when it starts raining, when they start walking down to Midgar, doesn't line up with what happened in the original or in the Crisis Core story. In the Crisis Core story, it's already raining. The Shinra troopers have already finished off Zack, according to them. They leave Cloud behind because he's not worth it. He's not worth the time. He already looks like he's basically dead or brain dead, effectively to them.
Right.
And they just leave him.
And they leave him.
They leave.
Right.
And yeah, and they're like, we don't need anything else. We did our job. We go get paid. And President Shinra has a little party for him. I don't know. But at that point, it's already raining. It even pans over to Aerith, seeing in the church, looking up at the sky and noticing it's raining right then and there. And it's she's already aware of his death.
Yeah,
that was in Crisis Core.
Yeah, that was Crisis Core. And then in the original, and then in this one, it's raining. He has Cloud on his shoulder. They're walking back down.
Okay, I didn't remember the rain, so you might be right.
The timing is off now. Is the
Very
major
off.
part that a lot of people are pointing out. And that's where, again, the time travel, the multiverse theories are all kind of going at it. But each of these theories that everyone has,
even if it does, like say that fate were changed back then, it might not have. It's not going to have any bearing on what's currently happening because Cloud is still messed up. Cloud,
maybe,
you know?
But that's one of the things where, because I thought the same thing, and again, like to prefix, obviously all this is just us like theory crafting because Nomura smirks way too large anytime anybody thinks of an idea or asks a question. But it was specifically put when we walk into that portal, Aerith says we're not going to be the same people when we leave.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that was just some like motivational, like we've seen some shit kind of like statement. That's not what it is. I think if they're destroying Fate, the unknown journey, shit could be completely different. Like
It could be.
In the next part 2, we could go to Golden Saucer and see Jessie's alive, but not only did she not join Avalanche, but she actually did become a singer or a dancer or whatever she wanted to, and we see her up on stage. And the crew doesn't even acknowledge it and has no idea, but we as the fans know because we fucked with timeline stuff. It could play that way because, I mean, Aerith did flat out say, we're gonna, like, when we leave this, we are probably not gonna be the same people. And I think that's kind of Nomura leaning into, like, yeah, we're kind of giving us, like, we'll still nail all the plot points of the original 7, but we're giving ourselves a little bit more leniency. I know that's
I'm gonna be real mad if they start intermingling, like, what happened with Zach and then, like, the alternate timeline and then mixing it into the current one. I'm gonna get really mad.
so if we get, like, in the next one, if we get like a Laguna like Final Fantasy VIII, Cloud falls asleep and then you wake up as Zach, are you gonna like throw your controller across
I
the room?
won't get but I will be like I said, they just, it has to make sense. It has to make sense.
And I think that is probably why, as much as I'm excited for where this is going, that's probably why I am so nervous. And why I'm like, that was my initial reaction, was just like, oh no. Just because I went through that with Kingdom Hearts. And I think Nomura can write a great story. I just don't think he knows how to end it. And everybody is theorizing.
Start a great story.
Yeah. Start, yes. And so many people are theorizing, and the theories are so great, but there's a huge part of me that's like, I love some of the ideas and where this could go, but I also am not convinced that the writers have thought that far ahead. Maybe I'm wrong, because there's a lot of details that reference everything in Final Fantasy, and I mean everything, not just Advent Children, even like before Crisis, the mobile game is referenced in this game, which is insane. So they've obviously done their research. So there is a big part of me that's like, please God, I hope I'm wrong. But then there's,
well, all right, so to kind of ease that feeling, we do know that it's not just Nomura only at the head of the script. Yes. We know that there is at least 2 other people who are very much more in charge of that than he is. He has a lot of input that he throws in, and they even said it in their interview with him. He came up with he came up with this idea of the timeline they wanted to go through for this story and a little bit beyond, and they very much did a lot of changes from that point.
Yeah.
So they have a lot more. I feel like they have a lot more influence than he does. At least I hope. Part of me, I agree with you guys. He can tell a great beginning part of the story. He just doesn't know how to end it, and that's where I am with Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
My feelings when I first ended the game was I was all hyped for the direction they were going. I was super excited to see what could potentially happen, and I still have that same energy, but I do have that nagging thought that it could end up that way, and that is like you guys have said, that's the biggest fear. I think every single Square fan out there, maybe not every single one, that's probably too generalized, but a very large portion of Square fans out there are probably in that same boat. Regardless if they love the remake so far or they hated it so far. Yeah. Everyone has that thought where this could just end up being another Kingdom Hearts 3. And I really hope they know how to rein that in.
Yeah. And like that's the thing. I want the theories that people are coming up with to be correct, because I think it could be a cool Final Fantasy VII story.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah,
I really hope I'm wrong.
Nope.
But
I'm with you on that.
I know, there was a conversation, there was an interview that was done where I think Nomura was sort of defending himself a little bit, but there was this conversation where like he threw Katasa kind of under the bus. He was like, "Hey, remember when you wanted to kill everybody in Final Fantasy VII?" And he was like, "No, that never happened." He was like, "No. I was the one that said we should just kill Aerith. You said you wanted to kill everybody and have the crew be only 3 people at the end to defeat Sephiroth." And I guess that was that was real. Katasa was like, "Oh yeah, shit, I did want to do that in the original Final Fantasy VII." So, as much as we do like to shit on Nomura,
yeah.
Well, hold on now.
Save the original 7.
It doesn't matter because Nomura has a track record of executing shit. And
1 good and 7 bad does not make 7 good.
I'm just saying, man. Like, just because somebody almost ruined a story or changed the story dramatically doesn't mean that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's
like basically it's like we got data on you, you know. Like like I almost messed something up, but we got data on you. So,
right. So Solace, Creed, you guys think omnipresent live stream?
That's where I'm at right now.
Right.
Omnipresent live stream. The whispers were arbiters of fate. They were trying to course correct whenever something would throw it off the path, and Aerith has access to the live stream, receives messages from it. She's able to speak to the Earth. We already know this kind of bit. And Sephiroth is already immersed in the live stream, so he pretty much can apparently do whatever the hell he wants. We'll figure that out as we go, I guess.
Right.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Okay.
It seems like you're still in the time travel, maybe multiverse theory.
I feel like there's just that. Yeah, I can't not get away from that. I feel like
it's not like they can't make a good time travel.
I mean, they could make it work. I do think like there's just a lot of signs for me that it points to that. So like when Barrett gets stabbed, right? That was shocking.
Yeah, but it didn't happen in the original. That was again Arbiters of Fate. Oh yeah, well, according to the original writing, they wanted to do
the original writing. Barrett
they wanted Barrett dead
to be the first to die for whatever.
Black man dying first.
I knew Solus.
Not the way you, not the way I used to. I'm just saying.
I think they knew that it would be too much of a trope back then.
This was the
the 90s.
True. But so like I do think that was like there was a lot of signs of them pointing to things like that where it's like, yeah, remember this could have been a way that the story went. And I don't know, I feel like there's just too many signs, and it could be omnipresent, but right now it feels super leaning on timelines. They use the word timeline a lot. I think like I can't get away
somewhere
from
in the middle. Like I definitely feel it's like a little bit of both. It's hard for me to ignore the obvious signs that there's some timeline play, but I think it's hard for me not to agree and see that Aerith and Sephiroth are playing puppeteer, and
Aerith
they have
knows way more than she's letting on.
She knows she it's not necessarily that, because it's, as an ancient, I guess she always had a little bit of vision, right? And Sephiroth is also an ancient, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Kinda, not really.
For the way I understood it, like they were originally going to write Aerith and Sephiroth as brother and sister.
Yes,
so there's always that.
Originally they wanted to, but then they made it
them.
That it's
he's not okay.
He's Genova's.
It's just the Genova
clone.
Yeah,
and Genova isn't really an ancient. Genova is effectively a virus to the planet. Is the best way to describe it.
His powers have allowed him to access the live streams the same way that Aerith does. So at least in some sense, right? So I think both of them are playing puppeteer, and she knows a little bit more than she lets on, and Sephiroth has his games, and I think that the party is kind of the puppets. It's somewhere between like the timeline theory and the live stream theory. It's just, but it's too hard to really pin down. There's too many variables, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's the big thing that really just, you can't subscribe to just one of those theories, really, because there's already so much evidence against every single one of the theories. I haven't seen a single theory that the entire community has gone, I can't just prove you.
Yeah.
Every single one is like, Yes, but there's things that says it's more this way.
No.
I do think that like Solace nails the one point that I think a lot of us are probably not focused on enough is I think Sephiroth is not just fucking with Cloud, but indirectly or maybe directly fucking with the players, right? Like his big thing is bringing despair. If he's aware of everything that's going on, I think he's going like I will not be surprised if in future parts in these, if it's an alternate timeline or anything like that, if we're the ones as Cloud that kill Aerith. I would say that right now. Because in OG,
it'd be a very interesting way to tell the story.
He thinks about it. He is like whenever he's around, I think when he goes to like the Temple of the Ancients or whatever, he has that draw and he has like a vision of him kind of like hitting Aerith on the head with his Buster Sword and like killing her. It'd be very interesting, like if
wasn't that Genova in control?
Genova's cells were taking over at that point.
Yeah. And so like it would be if Sephiroth is playing in the whole like bringing despair because that's what he loves to do. Kind of, I don't know. I'm kind of like piggybacking on what you said, and going on a tangent a little bit, Solace. But I could see how like the Sephiroth gameplay, he's messing with Cloud, but he's also messing with us, the player base, at the same time.
First of all, I want to just point out something. I never noticed this, but of all the Final Fantasy games for you to have sitting behind you, I couldn't help but notice that you have an 8 back there, Soren.
What do you? It definitely needs to be, you know.
Gross.
What do you mean? It needs a little bit of love.
I needed a lot of love. But anyway, I like to think about the next game and how they're gonna do this, because you know you have to kind of balance their power and make it a gameplay. It's like, how do you take away all their abilities and everything that they've learned so far?
They'll roll back.
I have a theory.
Yeah, but here's what I think will happen for a large portion of the game. We're going to be playing with Reeve and Yuffie for good chunks of this new game until you're kind of balanced out with the others.
Here's my theory. I changed the topic to like free discussion because I think we're getting into like us talking about whatever we want.
Right.
When we get into part 2, I don't know how they're going to pull this off, how they like tell the story or anything, or you know, timing wise, they might mess with it a little bit. Like we were talking about earlier in stream today, it feels like this version of 7, this 7 remake, is teaching players their combat system, the materia, weapon upgrades. It's very much a well-done tutorial over 40 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be surprised if the next game starts, you're kind of OP going into it, Yuffie steals all your shit, sells it, you gotta start over. Come on, like, wouldn't that be freaking amazing?
That would actually be pretty good.
Because then you're like,
you're just walking through a forest and you're like, oh, Greaves lightning, that's it, you know.
Especially people who like aren't aware of Yuffie, like when you meet her and you have to deal with her stupid chaos in
Dude, I can't even tell you right now how to properly go through that cutscene with her in order to get her on your party the first time. And this time we can't miss her.
Yeah.
So same with Vincent. We can't miss them.
Yeah.
According to what we've been told.
It'd be like the perfect way to bring back that feeling of like, I hate this girl, but then you fall in love with her like as time goes by. But initially you're just like, you're just annoying, you're just a thief. I think that would be a genius way. And now I think that way, it probably won't, and I'll be disappointed. But I feel like that could be a way that you could sort of reset the players.
I'm all about running around as Reeve and Kate Sith, and I'm all about running around as Yuffie, and I hope that that's the way it goes for a little while. Like, before you give me back my powerhouses, maybe force me to see what's going on in Shinra as Reeve. You know, maybe let's look at what happened after they left and what Reeve is going through and how this brings about Kate Sith. And let's look at
interesting to see them do that. Yeah.
I think it would be really cool. I think it could be really well done. So
that could be cool.
The real question that's on everyone's mind right now: do you think they bring back the Mog costume as well?
They have to. They have to.
Yeah.
That said, if I will open this up. We'll keep the conversation going for probably like another like 15-20 minutes if you guys are cool with it. If anybody in chat has any questions that like you guys want us to address, feel free to chime in and we'll grab them and like talk about what interests us most. But yeah, I will definitely buy the next version. But it's going to very much determine how I feel about it, and I'm very concerned. And we'll see. I'm sure it'll still be fun.
It's the edge of It's the edge of creation.
Yeah,
you know, boundless, terrifying freedom. So,
yep.
We didn't talk about it, but like that meta that the Arbiters of Fate are actually the fans. I love that. I love that.
Theory, yeah.
That is the fans, the hardcore fans trying to keep everything intact.
You can't kill Barrett. Get him back up.
Well, it makes so much sense, and I do think like I know that this was debated a little bit in like the conversations I had with people, but like it makes sense. Not in a aggressive, mean way, because I don't think that the devs are trying to be like, listen, fan base, please just calm down. Like, I don't think that they're trying to attack the fan base, but I do think that they're trying to say, let us have a little bit of creative freedom. We understand that this is very important to you, but like every time you interact with the Whispers throughout the game, it's painful, and you don't like it. And I feel like it could have been a clever kind of coy way of the developers being like, how they were trying to get us to feel how maybe they felt a little bit, right? Like they're like, oh, wouldn't it be so cool if we did have like Barrett have this moment in the fan, but we can't because then everybody's gonna review bomb us on Steam, and like they, you know, those kind of conversations. So yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I'm interested to see is how they handle open world, because like you can't do that. You know? Can't, like,
yeah.
How do you handle open world and not make it campy?
I have no idea. I've gone through like 7 different scenarios in my head of they could do this, but then it's gonna look like shit. They could do this, but why would we have like random active battles all of a sudden?
Yeah.
They can do this. No, that doesn't work either. I can't picture how they're gonna pull this off, other than like the closest to a like cognitive thought that I had that made it like kind of okay to me was they have sections of the world that you're able to explore, and then when you hit the map's edge, you kind of transfer to the next zone, kind of a la 14.
Yeah. Well, like Fearman does bring up a good point. Like The Witcher 3 does handle open world pretty well. But yeah, I don't know how they're gonna pull it off, because it could just be the nostalgia or like the rose glasses, like the rose tinted glasses on my part. But the world felt huge back then.
Yeah.
And there's so many areas, and like how do you, especially when you get an airship and flying around with Sid, like.
Yep. How do you handle that?
How do you handle that? Like 15 did a decent job of having open world, but there was even some restrictions.
That world is way smaller.
Way
smaller.
Yeah, we're talking 7 was a world where like so I don't know. I would
open world was like 1.5 or not 1.5, like one continent that you couldn't actually access and another continent that you experienced like maybe a third of.
I think that they might not be able to pull off open world, which
not true open world, at least
not true open world, but like even if it's a little bit, what I would want them to work on is don't have the same approach to side quests that they did in this one, where side quests
let us go back whenever.
Yes, side quests very much are walls. If you want to experience all of the side quests, you need to now stop, put the story on hold, and do all of this now, because we're going to warn you there's no way you're going to come back and do these, right?
Right, but that's part of that. That's part of why the linear thing bothered me, because that was the only way to incorporate. And I know a lot of you in chat were like, don't worry about linear, like a lot of good games are linear, but it's like, but with Final Fantasy, like when you make it linear, those side quests become a wall. There's no way for it not to, because you have to keep that story going.
Yep.
So
yeah,
Like you
I'm
couldn't pick up
worried.
any of
I'm
those
very
side
worried.
quests and then continue them on later on. Like
That's-
even when you were able to go back to each of those zones that those side quests take part in,
Yeah.
you couldn't do them.
And that was one of the things that like I really, as much as not a lot of people like 15, it's very controversial. I thought 15 did side quests perfectly because you had that open world, you were able to explore, you were able to do stuff, you could put it on pause, you could go do the story. Once it got to like you leaving the island that you were on, then you're locked into.
Yeah, what was the big chapter? 8 or 9 that you?
I think it was 8.
Once you pass 8.
Yeah,
everything else operated in that same.
No, chapter 13 was
so.
after it was already linear.
Chapter 13 was just the worst chapter.
Yeah,
everybody knows that chapter.
That was the one that everyone didn't like. I tried to defend 13, and then after playing the changes, I was like, all right, yeah, no, this is better.
But like, I think I would be okay with them having linear for this first part, teaching the players how to play their game, adding a little bit more, right? I want the second game, if I were to like say what I want it to be, I want it to be a focus on open world where there's a little bit of story driven stuff, but you can also kind of like branch off. Like maybe I meet Sid, I get on your ship, I can fly around wherever I want, do my stuff, then continue back exactly how we used to play 7, you know? And then maybe the last game is going to the conclusion, and that's again more linear. So kind of a different approach to how they've done stuff, because if for like a lot of Final Fantasies is either super open at the beginning and then very linear at the end, or very linear at the beginning and then super open at the end. There's not a lot of like, here, have all of this downtime in between where you can go do what you want and level and all of this stuff. 6 kind of did that, but like, kind of know what I mean? I think that would be a really cool approach for modern day Final Fantasy.
Can we drive cars? No. we leave that in 15. It was fun there and nowhere else.
Yeah, PlayStation 5 in the winter. I don't know. I get the feeling, though, that at least Part 2 is probably going to be released on PS4 as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think. I'd hope so people can experience it and they don't need to buy a whole new console. But
I would imagine that if development has already started,
it has to be on PS4.
I think it'll be between both.
This first expansion will probably be both. I'm curious to see how if they do transfer any data over between one and the other, how they handle that with the transition from PS4 to PS5. I assume it could be something through the PlayStation Network, considering that's a little bit there nowadays. That's a little bit better integrated between their systems than it used to be.
That is, you kind of raise a point that I wanted to talk about, because I know this has been debated as well, and then we can, like, if you guys want to wrap it up, or if there's anything else you guys want to talk about, we can talk about it. What are your thoughts on if what we've done in the current game is going to carry over? Levels, materia, our weapons.
That's what I was talking about. Like with Yuffie stealing all your stuff, and like, I don't know how you take all that away. We didn't have all the summons. That's the one thing I remember. Like 7 had a ton of summons. So, like I don't know that they would necessarily take it away. I don't know if having a save file, if that's going to carry some data into the next game. Like I have no idea how that's going to work.
Because I know like Mass Effect did that, but like Creed, you raised some good points on how it probably won't.
Yeah, no, there's plenty of evidence that suggests that we can't. Like the biggest thing, especially for equipment, was, remember in the original, how long did you use Buster Sword in the original?
Oh my god, what, a couple of minutes, right?
You use it for the first Bobby mission, and that's it. Because immediately after you got the second weapon, you just kept on upgrading from there. Everything was an upgrade at that point. So I feel like they can't really bring that over. Maybe they'll bring like their iconic weapons over and then let you level those up along with all the new stuff you get, but you're not going to get any of the other things you got. I think equipment wise, we can't do that. I think for level and for materia, I think they could easily bring materia over. So far, there's something that supposedly later on they shouldn't, and maybe they won't. But that's fine. I'll get there when I get there. I think if they do that, it's going to be rolled back, though. You're not going to start at level 50. You're not going to start with maxed out level materia. Maybe some of them will be like level 2 when you start off instead of level 3.
So scale it back automatically or something.
I think everything if it carries over will be scaled back. Scaled back. Anything that would carry over would be scaled back. That would be my
I mean, remember if the numbers too, they really weren't that high. Like, yeah, some of the like special attacks and stuff, like your abilities hit hard, but like your regular attacks really weren't that strong. Like you're hitting for 16s, 17s, 18s, you know.
Especially 2 if it was resisted.
Right.
Yeah. And I do think that like a lot of us are kind of viewing it through the frame of how we've played old Final Fantasies, right? Level 99 is the max. They don't necessarily have to honor that anymore.
Nah, they could be 255. You know, that's the Square Enix standard. Beyond, so
yeah, like Square Enix games are traditionally level 99 max. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Oh yeah, not Square Enix, but the Enix standard was the 255. So to me, that would make sense if you could go that far before the, you know.
I wouldn't put it past them to like if you did start at level 50, like it's not impossible for them to scale everything according to the level. I wouldn't be too terribly surprised if they pulled it off that way. I do think though, to make things a little bit more simplistic on numbers wise for developers, they have like here's the base point, this is what we want to start off. Okay, if the character is beyond this base point, set them down to it. That would make so much, it'd be a lot less of a pain than to just scale everything up constantly as you go through. And granted, we've seen them be able to do it with like titles like 14 and to a lesser extent Final Fantasy 11 for any of you guys who have played it. The power creep did go up pretty extensive in that, effectively having item level, I think now they're at like 130 or something like that, and they're able to kind of scale things up as you go with it.
Yeah.
But it's not quite the same as developing fights at, like, I expect the player to be at this level, I'm developing the fight for this level, and instead having to go, I'm expecting the player to be at this range of levels and I need a dynamically changing boss algorithm.
Right,
I think in order to make it work, I could see them and just scaling it to whatever you got and taking every certain aspects from your previous save if you had it, and matching it. So
one thing I will say, I agree with you guys on the UV part for this. We don't get our gil. All of our gil gone.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure.
That 100% will not transfer, regardless of anything else that does. If at all, we will not get our gil.
I'm gonna laugh my ass off if Yuffie does just steal all our shit, and it's all done.
I'd be so okay with this. Like, I can't.
I feel like that would be a great. I would be, like that would. I feel like that would be perfectly Yuffie, and I wouldn't be upset about it if they reset us that way. I could make that work. But like, other than that, the only argument that I have for I think you could get away with carrying stuff over is, yes, I agree with a lot with what you're saying, Creed, where like numbers are a little bit tough and figuring out boss fights and all of that is balanced. The only thing is, in these fights in this version of 7, it's not all about numbers or timing. It is very much about strategy and like watching the bosses and learning the enemies. And so like, even if you feel really powerful because you can cast regen on everybody with, you know, regen all, it's you're still at a disadvantage in certain fights, right? Like if you don't have fire equipped, you're gonna have a harder time, right?
If you go into Hell House with anything less than all 4 of the elements spread amongst both your characters,
you're gonna have a bad time.
You have a bad time.
So like, it doesn't matter how powerful you could be, level 50 going to that fight and still struggle if you didn't have the right materia. So like, there is the level of like, I do think strategy plays a lot into it, and I do think that that's how they're approaching a lot of the fights this time around. Because they even kind of mentioned that, where they said like the game is taking a little bit longer to develop because we're looking at every boss fight and we're thinking, how does this need to go, instead of just how do you burn through this really quick. It's a full thought out thing. But yeah, it could go either way. I'm curious to see.
I think I think the time saving method would just be you start the characters if they transfer anything over at this point, and that's how you balance it out. I don't, if that's how they do it. If we're expecting like 3-year developments for each of these.
I'm
Which, if you
hoping
want
to,
to,
but yeah,
if you want to compare this to like the 13 trilogy, it was about 2 years between every game, roughly.
yeah. I'm hoping
give or
that they
take
don't
a
take too
couple
long.
months. 2
years max, dude.
I think
Yeah,
I think with the way that the world is right now, 2.5 would be probably what we're looking at. That's my guess. I'm not going to put money on it because anything can happen between now and then. For all we know,
do you think they're going to call it Remake Part 2?
No.
I'm very curious what they're going to call it.
Is it going to be Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? Is it going to be Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Reunion?
Oh god!
Like,
oh my god!
All right, last one, last title Reunion. Last title Reunion.
The last
sense.
one would be Reunion.
That's the only one that makes sense. I have no idea what they would call.
What's the middle one called? Rebirth?
No, we don't even know if it's 3 parts. We have no idea if it's
we
3
don't.
parts.
It's very much assumed, but
yeah,
I feel like if Solace calls it here, somebody's got to gift this man like 20 subs.
No, absolutely
Oh my
not.
God.
No, I want to be wrong about this. That was making fun of them.
7
You know, that was a jab at Nomura, man.
Phoenix says Final Fantasy VII rewrote. That'll be
we're going with the
Journey,
Magic the Gathering unset rule, where it's always the first 2 letters are the same and then everything else is whatever.
Final Fantasy VII redacted.
Final Fantasy VII Calm Before the Storm. Chams is actually banned from your chat.
Wow.
So good.
Subversion, I like it.
Oh yeah, Subversion. Oh man.
Early 2023, calling it. Yeah, I
Final Fantasy VII. Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past it, but I'm hoping for 2022.
Yeah, same.
Or earlier. Or earlier is fine. As long as it's just as long as they keep the quality up. I'm okay with it.
I'm hoping we get it sooner rather than later, but it is Square, so just hope for the best.
Resurrection.
We're gonna lose our minds with that next trailer. We're gonna lose our freaking minds.
You know what's really funny?
How much do you think they're gonna let us know?
Go back. For anybody who's like in chat, you guys go back, find the old E3 trailer, and listen to the voiceover. There's 2 things you want to take away from it. One, the voice actor that they originally had for Barrett, not great. But 2, listen to like the voiceover and what it's talking about. They were aware of what they were doing from the start. Everything the guy is talking about, it's very heavily implied that they knew it was going to be a decisive ending for people. Like, I know I'm doing like theory crafting shit and all that, but go back and watch it. Listen to the guy talk. He's very much like, this is going to upset people. Some people are going to be happy. We're rewriting things. Like, it's straight up told to us, this is not the Final Fantasy VII you think it is. We just all were too excited seeing Cloud's Buster Sword walking in the shot. And we were like, holy shit.
Yeah.
But they told us from the start. But you should all look up. It's so good.
If anyone goes in, if anyone who played the original game, and I've said this numerous times, if anyone who played the original game went into this expecting a 1-for-1 recreation, I'm sorry that you didn't get that. I would have hated if it was just a 1-for-1 recreation with just fancier looking skins. I wouldn't have been as excited.
I don't care about a remaster / remake. Like, I don't care. I don't want that. Yeah, I'd be pissed off if it was kind of more akin to like
I would have been like
Secret of Mana.
Right.
Like I'd have been pissed off.
Yeah.
So
I
Remake, we're back.
I think we found the one thing that separates us. I wouldn't have found it anywhere near as cool. I would have been like, oh, cool. It's 7. It's 7. It's just 7. It's pretty 7. It's very pretty, and I'm going to enjoy playing this. But I'm not going to love it.
I would have been happy.
This game would not have sold nearly as much if they had done that.
No way.
I don't know, man. Like maybe, but like I also I would be totally fine if it was just Final Fantasy VII, word for word, line for line. If it was just beautiful.
Think of the remake.
Hell yeah.
Think of the remake between like Secret of Mana. Like Secret of Mana is a perfect example of that as a Square Enix game. Like that was. They were essentially the same. It was just much prettier, different engine, but it was it was just a polished up version of what was on the SNES. I would not pay or care about that game. Like, no, I got the original. You know, I like the old polygons. You don't need to round them out. You know, give me Tifa's triangle. You know, so that's that to me. That I think that this made it good. I think the fact that they fleshed it out and had a chance to tell the story that they actually wanted. I think back to like I don't even think back. I watched old gameplay of Final Fantasy VII, the bombing run, and I compared it to the current one. Some of the enemies that you come across in Final Fantasy VII, like you fight turrets in a random battle, and in my head, I'm just like, okay, this is just some machine, you know, and it's just bouncing or whatever because they want to make their enemies, you know, have some animation. But like in FF7R, no, it's actually mounted turrets that you're fighting, and I think that a lot of the limitations, the hardware limitations back then, like prevented them from telling the story that you were supposed to like perceive. Because I had no idea, like oh, those are actually mounted turrets, not just bouncing, like walking around turrets. You know, like, but they couldn't convey that in a game. So
I do think, like, yes, I do agree. I think that this path that they're taking is interesting, and it definitely is working because we're all talking about it, right? But I also think, like, to point out James's point in chat, I think that is why, for me, if they had done a 1-to-1 remake at the level of like polishing out characters, having the breakdown with Barrett and like the VA really bringing it home and all of that, like you could have a 1-for-1 at that level of quality, and I'd be sold. I would.
But you can't. If it's a 1-for-1, you don't get that level of quality. If it's a 1-for-1, you're not getting that.
I see what you mean. Where it's like character. Right. So like, I guess what I would say is a 1-to fleshed out one. So I guess maybe like but no, they're changing. Like, this is not remake. This is remake. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. James explained it better.
I get that. Like, it's something that fans wanted. It could have, like, they could have done the same game, changed the voice or the lines to be one, a little bit more appropriate for the times. Two, still kept the characters, like, their personalities and fleshed them out. They could have still done the extra stuff if they really wanted to, just made it more, I don't know, more turn-based. I don't think it would have garnered as much attention, though.
Maybe it wouldn't have. There's no way in hell. But regardless of the attention, the experience wouldn't have been as immersive. One of the best parts of this game was the combat. You don't get that in a 1-for-1.
No. That's true. That's true. I guess I'm loosely using the term 1-to-1. But yeah, I do see what you mean. I just think that, like, you could retell the OG Final Fantasy story in the means that they did. Sort of to use, like, what you said, Solace, cut off the end of Chapter 18 before we walk into the White Void. You could have that if you just remade the OG 7 at that level without the whispers.
I'd be okay with that. I would be okay with that. If the story were 1-for-1 but fleshed out, I'm on board.
I would love that. And I think that's what I was expecting.
And I think that's what a lot of us were expecting, especially like at certain points in the game where, you know, it's like you're maybe walking into seventh heaven for the first time, or you're seventh heaven, you're walking into what you call it, Wall Market, you know, and you're seeing how much bigger and grittier it is,
how alive it is, and
like that. That's when you're like, okay, this game is going to be a 1-for-1, but it's just way more in depth and fleshed out. And then you're kind of given that Nomura curveball, you know, at the end. And so, I would have been okay if the story and the plot points were 1-for-1. Let's do that all day.
I can see.
I would be happy with both. I think I went in thinking it was going to be what you just described, Solace. I'm hesitant, but I'm on board for the ride, is what I would say.
Chams actually made a really good point there too. Like, the plate had a way more like bigger impact.
Huge impact.
Falling. Like, because I legitimately forgot that the plate fell, you know?
Yeah.
And then knowing that was coming, I'm like, oh my God, this really did happen. I died in this fight, you know, in the original game. Like, holy crap, like this is huge. And because you see how big it is, it really does land an impact. So yeah, a 1-for-1 without them changing everything would have been fine. I don't necessarily know that Nomura and group had to, like, you know, they had their reasons, but if it works,
they're being very tongue in cheek right now. So it's gonna be a brand new experience for literally every Final Fantasy fan, which is exciting. I would have loved for what you were describing, Solace, but there is a side of me that's also very excited to theorize Final Fantasy stuff with the community yet again and like get angry at each other over theories. I'm very excited about that.
Think about the fact that we're talking about a game that originally came out in 97.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. That's super cool.
We spent 2 hours talking about a game from 1997.
Yep.
Hey, we talked about a game from now.
Yeah,
that was remade. And
we didn't talk about 90. Well, I mean, anyways,
so that said, because we have been talking for like 2 hours, and I don't want to like take up too much of your guys' time. How do you guys feel about ending this with giving your like ranking out of 10? Real quick, don't overthink it. Creed,
I have to give two separate numbers. So.
Okay, all right, that's fair. If you want to do that, let's do that. We'll end that, and then we'll drop a host.
Game on its own.
Yeah.
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. If they manage to pull off whatever crazy stuff they're doing with the Arbiters of Fate, 10 out of 10. If they manage to pull it off.
If they can pull off the Nomura storyline, 10 out of 10.
If they can figure out how to end a Nomura storyline, 10 out of 10.
Okay.
I will,
That's not fair, Creed.
All right, Solace. What about you, man?
For me, as somebody who played Final Fantasy VII, isn't an over-the-top fanboy about it, but did enjoy it and does enjoy Cloud, and you know, I like the universe. I will give this game, my personal rating is a 9 out of 10. It's almost perfect, right? As somebody, but being completely unbiased as much as possible, looking at it for its faults and its at some points kind of shoddy storytelling, especially at the end. I would give it, if I weren't a fan and I had never played the original, a 7 out of 10. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
I'm kind of like right on board with you guys. I would probably have to give it I agree with Solace on a personal level. Having the like history of 7, 9 out of 10, easy. For somebody who's going into Final Fantasy, you know, they're like, oh man, I want to. I think like Angry Joe is a great example. He loved the game, which is great, and I hope that more people who never played RPGs and did not want to play Final Fantasies, that this draws them in. But I think it kind of falls into about an 8 out of 10 because there are a lot of aspects of it that are tailored to people who played the original 7 years ago, and I kind of wanted the game to be a little bit of what 7 was for Square back then. And I understand that's a big ask, but I wanted that sort of resurgence of, oh shit, Final Fantasy is a thing that deserves attention and focus. And the OG 7 was that. So, yeah, that's how I would do it.
Martinez making you happy.
Soren is over party. Jesus.
Wow. I'm a stan. I don't think I've ever been called that in my life.
Stan Creed.
No.
This is a great discussion though. We covered so much in 2 hours. I appreciate you guys making time.
I'll tell you right now, it's not even a half of what I wanted to say.
I know. We could keep on talking for
easily
6 hours.
go on for another hour or two. Like not even a joke. So I loved that game a lot. I was shocked. And the whole time I kept saying, like, I want to be really harsh on this game and be honest about it. But like they anticipated me. You know, they like every single thing I was ready to attack this game for.
They knew.
They had me.
They anticipated everybody.
Knew.
Like they had to be freaking reading forum posts where they were like, "There's no way they're going to be able to do Hell House," and they're like,
"Joke's on you."
Okay, then let's go ahead and program this thing, and like they just destroyed it, and you had Hell House in this world, and like they answered every.
How are they going to handle cloud cross dressing? Look at how somber this game is. Like, oh yeah. That's going to be the best scene of the game, bitch.
Yeah, they destroyed it. So
the
it's
dance,
just
the dance. Oh, I don't know where Cloud got his dance moves. If they were imparted to him from Zach or what.
Nah, as a special soldier, training. Yeah,
he never was trained as a soldier.
You know, it's it's a Hojo thing, maybe. I don't know. It's a Hojo. I'll just use Hojo. Yeah, it's Genova. It's Genova.
Genova. Oh my god.
Dude, all right. I'm going to give you guys a quick shout out. Listen, chat, if you guys are not following these two, please do so. Creed Plays Games, you're streaming hard mode in Final Fantasy VII right now, right? Are you going to continue that?
Oh yeah, I'll be playing it on and off stream. I play a variety of games. I play a lot of Final Fantasy, Square Enix games. Right now, the other game that is kind of hot on my list of games I'm trying to 100% is The Witness. For those of you guys who do not know it, it's a 3D puzzle game where you're kind of exploring this island given nothing other than you walk up to a door and it's the introduction to the first puzzle of over like 600 different puzzles.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to figure it all out on your own. So
I'm too dumb for that, bro.
I will say, like, half the comments that come into that stream, if they've never seen the game before or if they haven't played it, is this is hurting my brain. So I guess they're doing something right. So yeah.
Yep. And then of course you got SolaceAndDread. Thank you for making time tonight, dude. Listen, chat, if you guys like Nintendo, this is the man to follow.
That back wall right there.
That should give it away.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
the fact that he's wearing
dollars.
The fact that he's wearing a Pikachu hat.
Right now, my signature, man.
You're playing through like a lot of Animal Crossing. Is there any like specific thing that you're also trying to tackle right now, Solace?
Well, we're kind of getting back to form because Final Fantasy VII Remake it was a huge divergence, and then we also had before that we had the Kakarot game that came out, and I was like, I gotta play that. Those are two things in my childhood. But we're getting back to a lot of Smash Brothers, and we are, now that we're on, we have all this time. Dread really wants to get into some Mario games, so some Mario Galaxy, some 3D World.
Cool
yeah, well, Dread, when we played through 3D World years ago, she was always the tester, and and when I always threw her off ledges, I'm like, can we survive if we go down there? And I'd throw her. I guess she misses some of that. No. Yeah, I'm like, go find out. And I'd pick her up and throw her. So we're going to get back to some of the good old Mario hijinks. And
nice.
We're going to get back to the Nintendo content a little bit.
Sweet. Yeah, you guys, make sure you follow both of these dudes. Check out their streams. They're amazing.